people calling me and not just...
Good afternoon. Happy New Year. I'm Doug Shipman, the Atlanta City Council President, and I am calling to order this regularly scheduled meeting, the first of 2023 of the Atlanta City Council. I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
President Doug Shipman.
Present.
Council members, Post 1 at large, Michael Julian Bond. Post 2 at large, Matt Westmoreland.
Here.
Post 3 at large, Keisha Shawn Waits. Council District 1, Jason Winston. Council District 2, Amir Faroki. Council District 3, Byron Amos. Council District 4, Jason Dozier. Council District 5, Liliana Bakhtiari. Council District 6, Alex Wan. Council District 7, Howard Shook. Council District 8, Mary Norwood. Council District 9, Dustin Hillis. Council District 10, Andrea L. Boone. Council District 11, Marcy Carly Overstreet. Council District 12, Antonio Lewis. Quorum present.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next, we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. It was distributed before the meeting. I would make one note. Proclamation 23-P-0003 will not be occurring today. I would also note, since it's the first of the session, after the adoption of the agenda, we will do the President Pro Tem vote, which is not listed on the agenda. There's a motion by Councilmember Wan, seconded by Councilmember Bakhtiari, to adopt the agenda as adjusted. Is there any discussion? We can do this via unanimous consent without any objection. Any objection to the adoption of the agenda? Mr. Clerk, please sound the count on unanimous consent on the motion to adopt.
Unanimous consent of members present is 14 yeas, 0 nays.
14 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda is adopted. Next, as noted, we will move to the President Pro Tem. Last year's President Pro Tem was Councilmember Howard Shook. We thank him for his service. There is a very complicated formula for this rotation, which I don't fully understand. But Mr. Clerk, it is my understanding that the formula is for Councilmember Westmoreland to be this year's President Pro Tem.
Yes, sir, pursuant to Code Section 2-37.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion. It's moved by Councilmember Wan and seconded by Councilmember Bakhtiari that Councilmember Matt Westmoreland will serve as President Pro Tem for the 2023 year. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? We can do this via unanimous consent. Mr. Clerk, please sound the count of unanimous consent of the President Pro Tem.
Unanimous consent of members present is 14 yeas, 0 nays.
14 yeas, 0 nays. Congratulations, Councilmember Westmoreland. Look forward to your service. Next, we'll move to the invocation. It is my honor to ask the Reverend Jeffrey Ott, who serves at Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church in Atlanta, to come forward to offer words today. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, President Shipman. And I bring greetings from Our Lady of Lourdes, the community on Boulevard between Auburn and Edgewood, 110 years old this year, continuing to be a light in the old Fourth Ward, a light of hope and a light of peace. And so I greet all of you and thank you for having me here on this, the first day of the new year for your council meeting. And it is my pleasure and privilege to be here. Let us pray. Gracious, loving God, we gather as citizens of our beloved city of Atlanta today, this first Tuesday of the new year 2023. We thank you, our Creator, for giving us this opportunity to start anew, this chance, this day to live in gratitude, knowing that every good thing in our lives comes from you. We ask your blessing on our leaders gathered here and those gathered virtually, here both citizens and council members and staff. We ask your blessing on the various constituents of this council, especially those who are struggling this day. Help them to face all their challenges with courage and determination. We ask for your spirit to be with our city council as they deliberate and decide, that they may do their best for the least amongst us, knowing that there is always abundance in all of the resources that you grant us. Send your spirit of peace, especially as we embark on this new year, to guide our people to solve their problems nonviolently and creatively with a sense of the common good. Help all of us as we walk this day into this new year to be renewed in spirit, to be strengthened in courage, to be determined to live the best lives that we can live, lives of faith, lives of hope, lives based and founded on the good of all God's people. And we ask these blessings, as we always do, in the name of Jesus, the one who came to preach a message of peace, the one who came to show us how to live together, the one who calls us to love one another. And let all of us say amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. In the spirit of reflection, I would ask if there are any of those that we should remember. I would take a moment. I think we were all shaken by the images last night of Damar Hamlin, who continues to fight for his life after being injured in the football game last night. And I would just lift up his name for us to remember. Councilmember Boone.
Yes, I would like to offer condolences to the family of Miss Pinky Rutledge. Miss Rutledge labored in the City of Atlanta Clerk's Office over 30 years. She will be dearly missed, a dedicated and diligent servant, a woman who graduated from Booker T. Washington High School. So on behalf of the City of Atlanta, we express our condolences to the family of Miss Pinky Rutledge and to the Clerk's Office. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bond.
Yeah, I'd like to add my voice to those extending condolences to Miss Pinky Rutledge. Not only was she a dynamic and forthright and earnest public servant in the clerk's office, as Councilperson Boone mentioned, but she was a close friend of mine, close friend of my parents. She was the sister of Benjamin Brown, one of the first black state representatives elected since Reconstruction. She was a very, very active member of her community over in the West End area. And of course, her daughter and I and Miss Boone, classmates together at Frederick Douglass High School. And Mitzi, her daughter, and I knew each other in the crib. And so we had known, well, Pinky has known us since we were twinkles in our parents' eye. And it is a great, great sadness that she has passed, though she is in a better place. And just want to put it to the membership that if there is a place to honor her here within this building, in these chambers, that's something that we certainly ought to do, because she was quite often the glue that kept many, many elected officials, many incidences, many boards, many committees, many people together here at City Hall. I also want to extend condolences to the family of the Fulton County deputy who was murdered, James Thomas, and who no one should lose their life. And those who are in law enforcement certainly know the risk when they sign up for it, when they're on duty. But for someone to be killed while off duty, just trying to make his way home, is an abject tragedy. So I want to extend our condolences to his family and, of course, to our sister government over at Fulton County and the Sheriff's Office, and really through all the law enforcement, who we lost someone who, by all accounts, was a tremendously earnest and hardworking public servant. And of course, we lost a couple of celebrities, two of whom which I got to meet, and one was, of course, Pele, the world's greatest soccer player, football player ever. You know, he's often characterized as Mr. Soccer of Brazil, but he was the greatest football player the world had ever seen to this day. And I got to actually see him play in the 1970s. But if you could sum up his skill level by a certain image, there's a photograph of him doing a launched reverse kick, deflecting the ball backward, as he almost appears to be somersaulting backward, which was a routine move for him. He was up there as the greatest of all time, like our Hank Aaron and, of course, Muhammad Ali. So he is deeply missed, and he was very instrumental in supporting the movement of soccer here in Atlanta, as he was all across the United States as an ambassador for the sport. And of course, Miss Barbara Walters, who I got to meet really by happenstance at Central Park in New York, where my brother and I happened to be casually making our way through the park. We made her acquaintance at a park bench and got to meet and speak with her at great lengths, and maintained I won't say friendship, but we stayed in touch from time to time on issues. She, of course, was a phenomenal journalist, as we will be honoring journalists and those in the mass media here today. If there was a giant in the last half century, she was that giant. So just want to extend condolences to her.
Thank you, Councilmember Vaughn. Councilmember Waits.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to speak to the travesty of suicide again. This issue has raised its head in our city again. I have a staff member that's lost a loved one this morning. And so for anyone that is struggling or having challenges, it's my hope that they will reach out to resources. I think the number is 988. And please contact someone to get help. For those of you who know anyone that may be having any challenges, please reach out to your loved ones, to your family members who may be struggling privately. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Juan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just going to ask all of us to keep the family of Kathy Colbinson, who is the leader of Chris 180, a youth development organization here in Atlanta. She lost her husband over the weekend, quietly but suddenly in his sleep on a fishing trip. So he was doing what he loved, but just want to keep them in our minds.
Thank you. Councilmember Lewis.
I ask everybody to pray for President Rose of the NAACP. He's going through a few things right now, so put him and his family in your prayers right now. President Rose, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Westmoreland.
Actually have 7 names that I want to lift up. One is Len Barfield, longtime active member of the Midtown community and a undisputed, universally loved ally of the LGBTQ community, passed away last month. Ellen Bowles, who lost her life. Vincent Murray, who was a longtime APS educator and helmed Grady High School for 23 years, including my 4 as a student there. And then speaking of students, I wanted to lift up the names of Zion Charles, Cameron Jackson, Malik Grover, and Justin Powell, who at the ages of 12, 14, 15, and 16 all lost their lives way too early to the tragedy of gun violence in our city.
Thank you. Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to acknowledge the passing of Ms. Betty Tepto-Valone, who was beloved in the West End community and loved her community. I think just about half of our West End community members had a piece of art or some commemorative item that she personally painted on their behalf, and she will be very, very, very missed. She lost her life to a battle to lung cancer a couple weeks ago.
Thank you. Any others? Well, for these and those unnamed, if we could take a moment of silence. Thank you. If you'd please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now move to proclamations, commendations, and special awards. We actually have 3, not 4 today. So first, I would recognize Councilmember Bond and all of those who are joining us in recognition of Glenn Burns to please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to say good afternoon to all of our citizens here in Atlanta, those who are present and via our electronic communications. It is really, as our honoree makes his way forward, it is really a pleasure to be here to present a proclamation on behalf of this individual who has done so much for so many for so long. You know, you feel you get to know people when you see them in your local living room and when you're in great proximity to them. They become just as common in your home as your own relatives and family. And so it is with that that everybody loves the weatherman, even when it rains. And really on a weird weather day like today, we miss you already from where you've been. But I have the distinct honor, privilege, and pleasure to present a proclamation in recognition of Mr. Glenn Burns. And I will read the proclamation in pertinent part. Whereas the Atlanta City Council recognizes Glenn Burns on the occasion of his retirement as he celebrates his success as chief meteorologist for WSB-TV in Atlanta, Georgia. Whereas for 40 years, Burns kept Atlanta residents and the people of North Georgia prepared for severe weather and helped to inform viewers on how to plan their day ahead. Whereas his career in broadcasting began as a teenager when he was 14 years old, working at WSVN-TV in Miami, Florida. After earning his bachelor's degree in journalism with a minor in astronomy from the University of Florida, he served as the intern for the National Weather Center, whereas Whereas Burns received numerous awards for his superior weather coverage from various entities, including the Best of Cobb magazine, Best of Atlanta magazine, the Associated Press Weathercaster of the Year, Best weather person for Gwinnett Magazine, the Red Cross, the Civil Defense, and the Coast Guard. And whereas working as the chief meteorologist for KARE-TV in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Burns acquired the Minnesota Teachers of the Year Program Award for involving students, teachers, and the KARE-TV family in weather education series. The program eventually evolved into the Weather School. And whereas Glenn Burns is a member of the American Meteorological Society and holds a certified broadcast meteorologist seal of approval outside of the weather coverage, he volunteers for many charities in the Atlanta metropolitan area, and his hobbies include fishing, hiking, and looking at the planets with his telescope. Now, therefore, we, the members of the Atlanta City Council, on behalf of the citizens of the city of Atlanta, do hereby proclaim this day as Glenn Burns Day in our fair city, and witness thereof, I have set my hand and have caused the seal of the city of Atlanta to be hereunto affixed. Congratulations, Mr. Burns. Like late night TV, wait, there's more. I believe we've got a video, and so roll tape.
Warming up to maybe freezing at 32 degrees.
A Doppler can actually pick up a tornado spot, get right down on the ground and just bury yourself.
You'd be trying to go into a brick wall there.
The one thing that concerns me is the changing weather pattern.
We've had some damage now. We just hope people are okay. I love weather.
Glenn Burns' fascination with and respect of weather came as a teenager.
And all of a sudden, a lightning bolt hit right next to me, blew me over with a shock wave, and my skin was tingling. I couldn't hear.
From that moment on, he was determined to learn all he could about lightning and weather and to keep people safe. After college, he worked in West Palm Beach and Minneapolis before his 40-year career at WSB-TV. He and his family arrived during Snow Jam 82.
And when I got off that plane and I saw what had happened and the hardships that the people were going through here in Atlanta, the schools were shut down, people had to walk 10, 15 miles to get back to their homes, I said, this is never going to happen again on my watch.
About a year later, Glenn was promoted to chief meteorologist.
This is a Channel 2 Action News Special Edition. Storm Watch 87.
I think we are going to get a little bit more light snow tonight, and in fact, we're going to see a few snow flurries falling across metro Atlanta. We've got a few showing up on radar right now.
Then the blizzard of '93, the storm of the century.
And I said, based on what I'm seeing here, I know the other stations are saying a couple of inches. I'm going 20, 30 inches of snow is not out of the question.
And Glenn was right. He and Severe Weather Team 2 are committed to getting it right, and most importantly, keeping people safe. During the Atlanta Super Bowl ice storm in 2000, 2008 downtown tornado, the 100-year flood in 2009, the 2013 Adairsville tornado, and of course, Snow Jam 2014.
Leading Severe Weather Team 2 is a privilege and a responsibility.
40 years at WSB, an incredible career. It was a privilege to be here for almost half of that and enjoyed working side by side literally with Glenn for all those years. Just watching the local knowledge of Glenn and being next to Glenn has just been an incredible thing over the years.
He is always prepared and always ready to cover anything that happens here in the Atlanta area.
While Glenn has spent decades earning your trust, he's also earned the respect of colleagues.
He is a remarkable person, family man, totally devoted to his family.
He's serious, but he knows how to have fun. I will miss him on the air because there's no one else like him.
He cares about people, he cares about the community, and that's why he does such a great job every day.
It's that personality, professionalism, and commitment to excellence that have led Georgians to welcome Glenn into their hearts and homes.
You get invited into people's homes, and that trust is earned, and I don't take that for granted 1 second. I mean, that is an honor.
Now, we are going to allow you to speak, but I want to first ask if there are any of my colleagues that want to come forward. But as they do, I was in Snow Jam 82. I was a 10th grader at Douglas High School, and I wish you had been on the air that day. 5 inches of snow. And I'll tell you how bad APS used to be. I went to school, right? We caught the train. Half the population, the school was the largest high school in the city at that time. Councilwoman Boone was there as a younger underclassman. But half the population of the school showed up. APS didn't close schools until noon. You know, show you how bad that was. But if we had you there, we would still be, you know, but we had the largest snowball fight I've ever seen. Mr. Hillis, are you coming forward? Please, Dustin Hillis, District 9.
Thank you, Councilmember Bond. So I just wanted to share my story growing up that probably I've not even shared with my colleagues, most of my colleagues, is one of the questions you get being asked, or one of the questions you get asked being a city council member is, you know, what's your other job? Of course, I went on to become an ICU nurse, but for many years, pretty much my whole elementary, middle school, and high school career, my dream was always to be a meteorologist. So, of course, when I would be with my friends and, you know, they talked about what they saw on MTV or VH1 last night in middle school, you know, I couldn't join those conversations because literally my television always stayed glued on either broadcast TV if it was on, waiting on the weather. Otherwise, it was always on the Weather Channel when it was actually an actual weather channel and not a reality TV channel. But you know, grew up wanting to meet all of the broadcast meteorologists. Of course, I grew up in Tennessee. I don't know if you know any of your friends and neighbors to the north, but grew up watching Davis Nolan and Bill Hall and Leland Statham and dying to have them come to my school. So I just wanted to share that. And yes, I'm a dork, but love weather. It really gets my blood flowing. So thank you for all of your many years of service to the Atlanta area. And I know if I'm any example, you're a hero to many young and old.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Burns, the podium is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you bring your umbrellas today?
I did.
We're going to need them. I would like to thank my wife because she has made such tremendous sacrifices over the years. Hi, honey, we got a bad tornado coming. I'll see you later. That kind of thing. And so all their life, thank you so much. Second, I would like to thank this gentleman sitting back here, Mr. Ray Carter, our general manager at WSB, with the foresight to do some tremendous things as far as weather is concerned. Getting us our own radar, the only station in Atlanta with our own weather radar. Now, when we look at the National Weather Service radar, there's about an 8-minute delay between what you see on the radar to what's actually happening. In tornado time, that is an absolute eternity. So the foresight of WSB giving us the support that we needed, our own weather radar, absolutely saving lives. Now, I grew up in Southeast Florida. My wife did too, in the Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach area. So my first job was in West Palm Beach at WPTV, the NBC station. So I got to learn about tropical meteorology and hurricanes and severe storms with the National Hurricane Center. Did a lot of work down there. And then one winter day when it got down to about 73 degrees, a general manager from the NBC station in Minneapolis was vacationing there, and he saw me and he said, would you like to come to work for us? So I was in market 79, and Minneapolis was market 14. Little pay increase there. So with consultation with my wife, we agreed to do that. We went to Minneapolis from Southeast Florida. If you're lucky, summer occurs on a weekend up there. It is absolutely terrible. I'm not going to lie. And spent 2 years there, but got to learn about snow forecasting with some brilliant meteorologists there at the National Weather Service. And then one day, a station in Atlanta called and said, would you like to come to work for us? And I said, well, it's 4 below here. What's it like there? And it's 68 degrees. Yep. Absolutely. So we packed up, and when we left, we got on the plane. The wind chill was 63 degrees below zero. The snow was this feet high, and see ya. But we made some good friends up there. It's a great city, but the weather, not so much. But when you get to Georgia, you have all of it. You have the tropical meteorology. We get hurricanes, severe storms, and of course the blizzard of '93. We do get the blizzards. So I remember, it was back in 1983. We did a lot of speaking. The WSB encouraged us to go to schools and speak, and I went to one school up in Bartow County, and it was in a very poor and very rural area. And there was the third grade, and this 8-year-old boy, I asked, "Do you have any questions after my presentation?" And he came up and he just started crying. The tears were streaming down. He goes, "My mom and I were so scared the other night. We're in a closet and we couldn't know what to do." And it just took me back, this poor little kid. So every time that we have had tornadoes, that kid's face is in my mind. So I want to protect everybody. So I remember it was in March 2008. I got the bulletin from the American Meteorological Society, which explained why big cities were never hit by tornadoes. And March 14th, during the SEC Men's Basketball Championship, I saw on the radar, wasn't a line of storms, it was a small one, looked like a little chiclet on the radar, but it had this appendage sticking out the back. And with our own radar, was able to determine that the wind was going forward and backward in a very close proximity. And I knew what that was. That was a supercell thunderstorm, and it produced the EF2 tornado that hit downtown Atlanta. But we were able to warn people. There was 1 death, and there were 46 injured as a result of that storm. But that kid's mind, that kid's face was in my mind the whole time. So while you try to convince people to take cover, have a sense of urgency, you always remember what's going on in people's minds. What do I do? Where do I go? What's going to happen to me? So I got that. I got the kids are scared. I got the parents are scared. Many of our viewing audience was scared to death that night. But just try to convince them they're going to be okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to follow it. We're going to stay with you every step of the way until this thing is over. So that was my most vivid memory of being in Atlanta, was that 2008 tornado. And since then, we've had some tremendous storms, and I'm kind of worried about this afternoon, tonight, especially tonight when people trying to go to sleep. But I left it in good hands. Meteorologist Brad Nitz is an outstanding meteorologist. Meteorologist Brian Monahan, Ebony Dion. I had the privilege to work with another brilliant meteorologist, Karen Minton. She has since retired, but we have a good group of people at the station, led by this gentleman here, who's given us the tools and the resources to do what we need to do. And thank you, Ray. And thank you all. And this is amazing. I much appreciate it. Thank you.
No, we appreciate you. We appreciate you and everything that you've done in the way to guide us safely through your tenure on the air. So we really do appreciate it. And your advice has just been phenomenal in keeping people safe. It is no telling how many lives you have actually saved, how many tragedies you may have actually prevented by interceding and by doing what you do best. And so we deeply appreciate that. And that's why you're here today, because we wanted to make sure that we honor you appropriately from our city. And of course, we're about to do what we do best. We're going to move here and take a picture. That's what the council does. So if everybody would step up.
Next, I'd like to ask Councilmember Waits and Councilmember Bond to come to the podium, and all of those who are here in recognition of Richard Belcher to come forward, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as they make their way forward, it is really great to honor journalists, period, because they are a part of our democracy that helps to keep those who are blessed or imbued with power accountable to the people that put them in those positions of power. And so our next honoree is someone who has spent his entire career not only informing the public of the news of the day, but making sure to speak truth to power, regardless of whatever political level, regardless of whether it's the federal, state, county, city, township, student government association, doesn't matter. Our next honoree is someone who has been a crusader for truth and justice from public officials their entire career. Mr. Belcher, right here. Okay. And of course, he's joined by his lovely wife, someone who we all know, love, and respect, Sally, the great Sally Sears, great crusading journalist. So we want to say hello to you too, Ms. Sears. So I have a proclamation. Ms. Waits will kind of scooch up and join me here at the podium. Do you want to? Where'd you go? Do you want to read? No, close. Oh, okay. All right. So I'll read the proclamation in pertinent part in recognition of Richard Belcher, whereas the Atlanta City Council is pleased to recognize Richard Belcher, who has made WSB Channel 2 Atlanta his home in every sense of the word during the past 30 years as an investigative reporter and anchor, whereas Mr. Belcher is highly respected and a valued journalist and colleague. His reputation garnered through a dedication to his profession and ability to deliver breaking news to residents of Atlanta and North Georgia, whereas his outstanding work has been honored with numerous awards and recognition, including from the Atlanta Press Club, and has helped to set the standard for excellence in broadcast journalism. With a no-nonsense approach to investigative reporting and his passion and accurate and compelling storytelling, he has demonstrated a commitment to include the ultimate goal of journalism, speaking truth to power. Prior to WSB in 1990, Belcher worked at WXIA-TV and WGST Radio, and then also spent 15 years as a full-time investigative reporter at WAGA-TV. He graduated from Georgia State University with a bachelor's in business administration degree in marketing. And whereas Mr. Belcher is married to Sally Sears, a former reporter at WSB-TV. They also have a beloved son, Will, and Belcher is also a proud father of two daughters, Brooke and Robin. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the members of the Atlanta City Council, and the citizens of the city of Atlanta, do hereby proclaim this day in honor of Mr. Richard Belcher. In witness thereof, I have set my hand and have caused the seal of the city of Atlanta to be hereunto affixed. Congratulations, Mr. Richard Belcher. Thank you very much.
I certainly would not miss this opportunity. Richard, I actually prepared a roast for you today, but I'm not feeling well, but nonetheless, we have not always seen eye to eye over the years. And I can tell you that I have a great deal of respect for the work that you do in your service to our city. So I just simply want to take this moment to congratulate you on your retirement. Thank you for your service to our city, and I look forward to working with you behind the scenes. Thank you.
Councilmember Norwood.
I just want to thank Richard Belcher for always answering his telephone when I had his private number on speed dial. You are the consummate professional to answer a councilwoman every single time she calls you, day or night. Thank you.
So you had his private number. So it was you, Mary, they called Richard Belcher. Always, okay. Any other colleagues? This is your last chance. Oh, again, just like late night TV, you can set it and forget it. I forgot that we also have a video. Please roll tape. Look at that hair. Wave after wave, it make you seasick.
Most people think of when we say Richard Belcher. He came to WSB TV in 1990. He's been asking tough questions of those in power and those who need to be held accountable for 50 years. More than once, Richard's been told, no comment.
Can we talk to you, please? Have you been questioned by the FBI?
Get that damn camera out of my face.
Many times, the reaction to his questions is not subtle.
Damn, watch it, man. I'll break your neck.
Richard's not afraid of a confrontation when it's warranted, and not afraid to step up to protect his photographers. Over the decades, a much more common sight was seeing Richard at his desk, poring over some records. His work ethic is second to none, but that's only half the story.
He has this reputation, first of all, as this hard-charging, dogged, investigative reporter that is relentless, and he's just going to destroy you. He was the kindest and most patient person with someone who was new to Atlanta, to WSB.
And here's something else you may not know. Richard Belcher was also quite the athlete in his day. He's number 24, playing for his alma mater, Cross Keys High School, against former Channel 2 sports director Chuck Dowdle.
But I don't always remember how I did against you. I do remember we always won because we were just a whole lot better than y'all were.
After 50 years, Richard's earned the chance to spend time with his family, including WSB alum Sally Sears and their son Will, and his two daughters, Brooke and Robin. His legacy is unmatched at WSB and in Atlanta. So tonight, we'll light a cigar in his honor and celebrate our friend, Richard Belcher.
You are the gold standard, not just here, but any place for the confrontation and many other aspects of investigative reporting.
He is the consummate professional, and he loves what he does.
All right.
Let me get up and tell the truth about him. As a recipient of the Super Sleuth, years ago, about 20 years ago, I had the grand opportunity of being under the watchful eye of Richard Belcher on something that I felt was unfair, it was not right, it was twisted, and we did not see eye to eye because every time I came out of some place, he happened to be there with a microphone. And he said, I'm just doing my investigative kind of work. But he was always honest, he was always direct, he was always open, and most of all, he was always fair. We would discuss him in Concerned Black Clergy meeting about how to address this when we were trying to be open, and he was always fair. What stood out in my mind, Jocelyn Dorsey's son was killed, and they all came to Providence for the funeral, and that was the first time I had an opportunity to see him in his non-investigative manner. And he was warm, he was gracious, he was a professional, and we talked, and I really began to appreciate the individual. And it's so difficult so many times when you do not understand the difference between what somebody is really doing to the best of their ability and who they are. And I want to say to you today, and when we got off the elevator, after it was so interesting how God works. 20 years ago, the thing that we talked about, the person who was between us has been indicted now. And we said, wow, that's great. And he said something that really touched me deeply. He said, man, it's good. And I just had to do what I had to do. And I want to say to you and to the people here, I'm sure that there are others like me, like Keisha Watts-Waits, who was saying that you've been there, but you were always straight, you were always honest, you were always direct, and you stayed the course. And that's what makes this city, this country, and this nation great. So I congratulate you and the City Council for honoring you today.
Thank you, Bridget.
Mr. Belcher.
I do
Photo
have
be
a
yours.
couple of remarks. This is the point where Uori Ogadi is going to drop out 40 pages here. This is kind of a reunion for me, and I don't mean with City Hall. This is the first time I've gotten a chance to wear a dark, serious suit in a month. You know, it's been blue jeans sitting at home, and now I'm back in uniform. I'm back in harness. I spent years telling people, what I do is get paid a pretty good salary to stick my nose in other people's business. But the truth is, I was sticking my nose in the public's business, and I liked almost every bit of it. But along the way, I came to respect that the job you do is very difficult, that it's not easy to be an elected official, it's not easy to be a senior appointed official, it's not easy to be an employee in a large government organization where people are quick to tell you, I pay your salary and I'm not getting the services that I expect. They do pay your salary, but it's a tough job out there because you're going to hear from these people. Nowhere is that more true than in a big city like this and in state governments, where people expect their roads to be built sufficiently to get them to work. They expect the TANF payments to go out. They expect Medicaid to work. They expect the schools to be fully funded. They expect the potholes to be filled. They expect the lights to work. And especially at a time like this when people are concerned about crime, they expect you to have a well-trained, efficient, and effective police department. And unlike Washington, you have to balance your budget. Washington gets too much attention. The struggle that you have to balance your budget every year, you and state governments, with competing interests is not fully appreciated. I appreciate it as a taxpayer in DeKalb County, but just as someone who has followed what you do, you got to do it with a limited amount of money. There's a natural tension between what we do and what you do, but it doesn't have to be a toxic, hateful tension. There was a period where it got fairly toxic between my side of the aisle and some of the people who were in this building a few years ago. That's gone. I'm glad to report that as a recipient of some of that toxicity, and okay, occasionally perhaps a deliverer of some of it, that it's gone. And it's a great pleasure now just to be able to do business here without the nastiness. My side can do a lot to enhance that smoothness, to lubricate the relationship. We need to be open-minded, we need to be fair-minded, and when we make a mistake, we need to acknowledge it. There was a moment in 1981 when the attempt on the life of President Reagan was breaking news everywhere, and Frank Reynolds was on for ABC, and ABC erroneously reported that Jim Brady, the White House press secretary, was dead of a very serious wound, but that he had died. He had not. And Reynolds went on the air and said, among other things, get it right. We need to get it right. And that should be a fair motto for all of the people who do what I have done. For your part, you can make things better just by give us what we want when we want it, even if it's going to sting, because ultimately we're going to get it if it's public records or public access. So just give it up. Don't create the fight. Don't make it worse than it is. Well. Don't make it worse than it is. And if you want me to apologize for using that woman, right? I thought she sounded pretty good at the time.
She did. You believe?
She did. I did believe her. I did believe her. And 20 years later, I'm reminded that, you know, sometimes we misjudge people. None of this means that we have to live in a perpetual state of conflict. We're not here to promote every project that you do or to say, you guys just do a great job, but we should be fair-minded. And don't hesitate for a second to call a news director, to call a general manager, to call an editor and complain. We should be able to take that kind of heat. And if we can't, then we shouldn't be out here doing these kinds of stories. That's right. I've enjoyed my years down here, meeting a lot of people, getting to know some as friends, sometimes in some kinds of tension, but always trying to come away with the ability to have a decent conversation. I know some of the people whom I've met down here were probably pretty glad that I'm going to be gone and spending more time in blue jeans and less time in dark suits. But thank you for the opportunity, thank you for the award, and Godspeed.
Now we will repeat our best and take a photo, but I'll take a moment of personal privilege and just say thank you for your service. I have been on the receiving end of the Richard Belcher trains. When Monstro the whale from Pinocchio, I was Pinocchio, and you were Monstro the whale. I didn't run, I just allowed myself to be swallowed. But in doing so, I want to point out to you that planes can't fly without friction. If you don't steel sharpen steel, had you not done your job, I would not be able to do my job better. And so I thank you and appreciate that. And so with that though, what we do best, as I remarked earlier, is take pictures down here.
Let's do it.
So we're gonna take a picture. Are you crying? Did I do it? Did I make you cry?
Well,
Your eyes are watering?
I've been known to weep.
It's not the rain.
You know?
Then I have succeeded.
I'm probably,
Please.
it's because my nap is late.
Oh, right, okay. I'll accept that. Come on up and let's take
Where you want? Up here? Come on, sir.
Well, we had Glenn Burns earlier, and I've just been informed that we are currently under a tornado watch. So I just wanted to advise everyone of that fact. Thank you for passing that along to those who are in the room and also who are watching at home. Please be careful. Take care. Give me just a moment regarding the final proclamation. Thank you for your patience. The final recognition today, I would ask Mr. Councilmember Howard Shook to come forward in recognition, and all those with him, of Charles Bell.
All right, we're kind of winging it here, but it's for a great cause. Mr. Charles Bell, whom we all know and have had the privilege of working with, is retiring from the city after a long career, and I was able to get a snapshot of the proclamation that has already received, and I will crib from it. He worked for Lockheed. He was an analyst on the C-130 Hercules project, and a plane which is still in service to this day. Was with the finance department for 9 years before moving to aviation, where he was for another 10, and then back to the finance department as budget chief, and just a very calm, confident, credible person that we have always enjoyed coming before us as members of the Finance Committee. You deserve a lot of credit for last year's unanimously passed in record time budget. If you blinked, you missed the entire thing. And so we're going to be missing you. I'm going to relinquish the mic here because I want to hear about your experiences. And hopefully you've got a lot of friends and family watching, because one of the good things about proclaiming longtime city employees is until that day comes, a lot of times family members don't see the work family, and they don't get to know how important and respected people are here until either that moment or, God forbid, a funeral happens. But so, Mr. Bell, thank you so much. I'm not going to crib off with all the whereases because I can't read the font. So, Mr. Bell, on behalf of the Finance Committee and all of council and all the many people that you've worked with and have been supported by, I want to thank you and ask you to come up here and tell us about your journey here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Shook. And I know it was tough. I suffered too from trying to read those phones. It was 20 years with aviation, no, 20. And that helped me get to just over 33 years with the city. It has been my honor and my joy and my pleasure to work for the city of Atlanta. Kept me employed for all those years after I left Lockheed. And I can remember, and I forgot to tell my brother about this, and he heads up contract compliance. But, so he's not here. I guess I'll have to hear that later. But I can remember when I left Lockheed and came to the city, my brother was already here. And my mother, God rest her soul, was just terrified that both of her sons would be in the employ of government. She was always a nervous wreck about that. But in time, she acknowledged it, and when we'd go home for family dinners, she'd ask us, just like we were little kids, what's happening on your desk? And so we had to provide a report card. First nine and a half, almost 10 years in finance, the next 20 in aviation. I did not mention anything to my old co-workers in aviation, but it was certainly a pleasure, a joy and an honor to work in the Department of Aviation. I learned so much, including as I look over my right shoulder, Dr. Tina Wilson. I know she always laughs and bristles when I speak because I'm kind of long-winded. But when we would have to give presentations within the Department of Aviation, one of our former general managers, Ben Acosta, would get on us and say, you've got to anticipate the questions, have the answers in your back pockets, and in many cases, build it into your presentation so that the answers will be there. And I always remembered that because that's been a long time ago. And I tried to do that here. I hope I didn't bore you and Chairman Wan with some of my long-winded presentations for the quarterly reviews. But I always had Ben's words in my head, and I always tried to build that presentation such that it would answer the questions. Just had a wonderful time. So to GM B. Biadori at the Aviation and to all the team, I love you guys. It was great working for you. Special thanks goes out to former CFO Roosevelt Council as he and Deputy CFO Dr. Wilson reached back to aviation and brought me down. It's been a wonderful experience being a budget chief here with the city. Special thanks goes to CFO Mohammed Bala, who stayed with me. I know when you transfer in for a huge job, you've got to review and analyze all of the talent. I'm glad I fell on the right side of the sword. And it's just been a joy. I want to say something a little away from work. I am a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, and I see Reverend Durley out there, who's also a member. I chaired what we refer to in the Atlanta Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi, a Student of the Year Scholarship Award competition. And I did it from 1998 to 2020, 22 years. And I always was so very appreciative of the support that I got from the Atlanta City Council. We had to bring in speakers, and during my time, we brought in Lisa Borders, former president, Cesar Mitchell, former president, Felicia Moore, former president, before she became mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and our current mayor during his time as city councilman, Andre Dickens. So the Atlanta City Council just answered the bell time and time again, and it was just a great feeling to know that city government respected and honored what we did as we tried to make our young people aware of the importance of education and to continue with it. And so I just want to say a special thank you to City Council for that. I don't think I would have been able to get them had I not been in the employ of the city, but I just wanted to say that so very much. To the finance department, many of them are here. It's been great working with you. And I think the budget is still going to be in great hands. My successor, Mr. Sean Gabriel, is here to my left, your right. And I think the team, I guess the goal, Sean, will be to try to duplicate the timeliness and quickness of getting that budget adopted in FY24. But I just want to say thank you for the acknowledgement and recognition of my years of service, and I appreciate everything. Thank you.
I invite council members up here. Is anyone from Team Bell wish to make remarks?
Sure. I just want to, again, echo my thanks for Charles, his tenure here with the city. Working with him for many, many years has been a fabulous experience. He's a joy to work with, a pleasure to work with, and has brought so much to the table. I never had to question his thoroughness, attention to detail, impeccable, and I know that he's transitioning now to the next phase of life and in his retirement, and will enjoy those years if he doesn't drive his wife bananas. But again, congratulations. Thank you so much for all you've done with the city.
Thank you.
I just want to take this moment also to thank Charles Bell, who's not only my Kappa Alpha Psi brother, but also my Morehouse brother. I met Charles when I first joined the city, and I was in the mayor's office. And I've always had a high regard for his attention to detail, his work ethic. His work ethic is undoubtedly one of the best I've ever seen. Charles would respond back at ungodly hours, in the morning, on weekends. Anytime you needed him, he was definitely there. And what I appreciate the most about Charles is when transitioning into this role, he really took a lot of time to get me up to speed on everything budget. So not only was he a great budget chief, but he was also a great teacher and a good mentor, and really helped me get up to speed in that first year. So Charles, I really want to thank you. And also want to thank you for coaching up your line of successors, because the budget department is probably in the best shape that it's been in quite some years. And Sean is up to the task, and you've trained that department to be as thorough as you and pay as much attention to detail as you. So the city is forever grateful. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to also thank Charles. I was the controller when Charles came over to the city. As CFO Bala mentioned, Charles will hunt you down. I mean, if you have a question, he is not going to let you get away. I mean, he'll call all the phones. He wants to get the answer, and he wants to get it right. So he has a great work ethic. I really enjoyed working with Charles, and he's very sharp, and we're going to miss you, and congratulations.
On behalf of the thousands of citizens at the Atlanta City Credit Union, so many years you have labored in the space on a board as a board member and helped so many employees with loans and those that needed financial counseling. So on behalf of the City of Atlanta Credit Union and all of its members, thank you for your service.
All right, Mr. Bell, they say the best time to retire is after you've won a national championship, and I would say the way the budget process went this past year, it certainly felt like we had won a trophy and everybody deserved rings. And I hope we haven't spoiled the new council members that into expecting that this is how it's going to be going forward. But the only reason it is because many folks in the public don't realize the budget process actually starts months and months before we even get a glimpse at it. And it's from folks like Mr. Bell who take the time to do the research, do the homework, be prepared, be thorough, all the adjectives that everyone has used to describe him, that by the time it comes to us, when you're peppered with questions from 16 council members during the budget hearing, you have no idea where they're going to come from. You always know that you've got the safety net of Mr. Bell to have the answers and to satisfy the questions that we present to him. I'm going to miss you. Especially this year as finance chair again. But it sounds great that you've taken the time to nurture your team and build up a bench to basically to deliver the work in your image and in your honor. And we hope to live up to the legacy that you've built. Thank you, and Godspeed and best wishes on your retirement.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to add to what my colleagues have said about Mr. Bell. You are a public servant, exemplar. You have not shied away from washing the feet of others, not just those in the general public, but those who are within the departments that can benefit from your wisdom, as was testified today from some of your coworkers. You're the epitome of what is a good leader, because you have not only succeeded in executing what your primary duties are, but you've brought along others that can stand in your stead when you are no longer there and lead from the footprints that you have left. The city of Atlanta, though we have a wealth of those that you have imparted and have prepared to replace you, will still be impoverished by your absence, because your presence has been unique as a servant to this city. And so, aside from being a great man of Morehouse, you are an indomitably fantastic, outstanding servant to this city's people. And on behalf of those people, we on the council say thank you with the greatest amount of gratitude. And if I could only touch the hem of your garment, perhaps the rest of us can be healed and served as you have served, sir. Congratulations on your retirement.
I believe it's picture time. Let's have the honoree and Team Bell move up.
Thank you all. Next, we will move to public comment. First up will be Brother Anthony Mohammed. I would remind everyone that you have 2 minutes unless you have donated time from someone else, which I will enumerate as we go. First, Brother Anthony Mohammed. Next, we'll hear from Margie McLeod.
Good afternoon, everybody. I see y'all had a nice break, Christmas break, New Year's break. Rent control matter. I'm still on rent control. Since y'all going back in the past, 1939, we was in depression. Shook. Did your mother talk about depression? People was eating what? Dog food. History is repeating itself. You see this can of dog food? People couldn't afford the food because things was and the 60s also. I'm not gonna get off. We're gonna get rent control here in City of Atlanta. Rent control matter. Do you see this overstreet? You know, maybe your family wasn't talking about depression. Because what's happening now, we are going back. Since y'all talking about history, history is repeating itself. Because people cannot afford rent. They can't afford the food. So are we gonna go back? You don't remember because people didn't talk about it. And Michael Barnes, you should know also. Did your family talk about depression? Because some people had to eat dog food. And I'm afraid this is going to happen because history repeats itself. Rent is going higher. The people paycheck is not going higher. Rent control matter, and we need rent control. People, you are power. Call the city hall. Call your council member. Call your mayor. Tell them you want rent control on the ballot. It can be done. The city of Atlanta. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. I see Brother Anthony Mohammed in the audience. Brother Anthony Mohammed, you have 2 minutes.
Got it here.
I am that I am. I am that I am a nigger, king of kings, committed indigenous, a spiritual being. I command the ancestors. I call on the mother of the cosmos to recognize my soul. I call on the father of my mental and my spiritual energy. I call on the daughter of the earth to help me with my emotions. And I finally call on the son, S-U-N, to help me create. I have in my hand today information about Atlanta. As I said, Mr. Westmoreland, when you had this article, Atlanta returned $1.3 million in unspent money for Atlanta workforce. We got thousands of brothers being locked up, thousands of people that don't have access to housing, thousands of people don't have access to economic empowerment. But also, I call on the proper will, the red hot city of Atlanta. You have a professor, Georgia State said, no houses for a Pacific race. We call them the dark matter people. The exclusion, the 21st century of Atlanta. Why is they being excluded? Because, Mr. Shipman, I want to thank for having the opportunity to change those committees. You had nearly 4 decades of black female leadership ends abruptly under Atlanta City Council President Belcher. Why do I say thank you? We have had all our dark matter people representing these committees, and look at the condition of the people on the street. If Martin Luther King was here today, he would be down here crying out, why you not doing more for your people? Why you not doing more in these committees, collaborating for the best interests of the people? As this woman here represents what? The power of...
Time has expired.
The Mar'at principles. I greet you as I did not greet you. Assalamu alaikum, Mar'at Mishrat, Hotep, Ashe, and Ashe. So it is.
Next, we'll hear from Henry Jordan, followed by Chef Dr. Kenneth Wilhoit.
Give now to the Spirit of God, everyone that's here. And Zacchaeus stood and said unto the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. And if I have taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore him fourfold. Luke 19, chapter 8, verse. Zacchaeus' confession reveals a penitent heart. Jesus give us power to disobey Satan and power to obey you. To obey Jesus is life, to disobey him is death, James Griff. Jesus says, place the income he created through me in my hands to help his people. With him is strength and wisdom. The deceived and the deceiver are his. Job 12, chapter 16, verse. Job believed in God's omnipotence, too, though have he emphasized its destructive capacity. I saw a vision about continents plotting against America. Then God had me search for properties. A China property was across the street from a property I was observing. Made me ask Jesus about protection. Then Christ showed me a tall white angel would protect my property if I seek his will. And he beheld them and said, what is this then that is written? The stone which the builders rejected, the same is become the head of the corner. Luke 20th chapter 17 verse. Men, even among God's chosen people, may reject him, but God's plan will succeed, whether with or in spite of them. James Griff rejected Jesus' word and assignment. Christ instructed me to move to a bigger house for his assignment because my life is in danger at my house. The just Lord is in the midst thereof. He will not do iniquity. Every morning does he bring his judgment to light. He faileth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame. Zephaniah 3rd chapter 5th verse. We need Christ more than he need us. You living on his time, not yours. But Christ gave it to you for his purpose.
Next up will be Chef Dr. Kenneth Wilhoit, followed by Amari Kinney.
I would like to speak, if I could, when they finish.
Ma'am, are you signed up on the list?
This is gone when I came.
Chef Doctor, go ahead.
I think she wants to speak.
We have to follow the list of signups. 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now, I want you to hear what I have to say. I have no intentions on repeating myself. My name is Chef Dr. Kenneth Wilhoit, a community leader of 20 years. This year is our 20th anniversary of the Soul Food Museum. I'm on a mission to help our people in our community, and I'm sick and tired of being played with. I'm getting older. I can't take no more. I'm hurting, and my people are hurting. We can't take no more. I appreciate your help over the years. You've been good to me. I need you to continue to be good to me so I can help us. These council people I'm calling out right now, I'm calling out your names because I want you to know the damn good job that you do, and it's recognized. Doug, you got good qualities and good leadership. We like you. I need your help to build a new soul food museum for this city in America. Mr. Barnes, excellent work during COVID-19. We're so proud of you, brother, you and Vanessa Manley. Damn, you do good work. The next one I want to call out, Mary Norwood, you good too. You've always supported me when nobody else did. With money, you didn't play with me. Thank you. The next one, last but not least, is Andrea Boone. Girl, you sharp. You're awesome. I need y'all's help to celebrate this 20th anniversary of the Soul Food Museum. I also want to thank our mayor, Mr. Andre Dickinson, and Rob Pitts for doing an excellent job in housing. Our people deserve housing. Thank you for the work that you've done. I'm going to call you. I'm going to email. Please respond to me, because if you don't, I'm going to be right back up here, and I'm going to tell it. And I'm going to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming until you help put me in a position to help my people. Thank you. I love you, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Next will be Amari Kinney, followed by Otis Bate. And again, if I mispronounce anybody's name, please correct me at the microphone. I do my best with the handwriting.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amari J. Fenoy. I am the former state director of the Georgia NAACP and a current national staff member. Thank you to Atlanta City Council President Shipman for making the decision to revise and appoint a Black woman to a committee chair. We appreciate your continuing commitment to diversity. We must continue to focus on equity and inclusion. We must continue to focus on equity and inclusion with the legacy of over 40 years of Black women leadership in the birthplace of the civil rights movement. It should not take a civil rights organizations to call on to the City Council to ensure that Black women are chairs of positions. The City Council should cultivate Black women in leadership and committee chair leadership, should reflect how diverse the city of Atlanta is, especially in a society where Black women are marginalized and often silenced, especially in leadership positions. Especially in the sense that 9 times out of 10, the power of the Black woman's vote elected each of you individuals here on this board. So we do thank you for making that decision and making that revision. I do want to thank some council members, especially Antonio Lewis, for ensuring that he was present yesterday to talk to the NAACP, but we thank you all for your leadership.
Ms. Finney, I apologize for on your name. Thank you. Otis Bate next, and then Howard Katzman.
Good afternoon, everyone. And that's Otis Battle, sir. B-A-T-T-L-E.
Sorry, I missed the L.
Okay. I am a representative and the agent of a nonprofit program called Battle New Generation on the Privilege Program. We feed the homeless kids and anyone. We go to elderly houses and take them anything they need. Only thing they got to do is get in contact with them. But right now, we're trying to work on the young kids, the violence. And what I've been doing research on is the Job Corps Center. The Job Corps building, which was, it was developed by Mr. Walter H. Chef Akins in 1951. Make a long story short, it's always been used for education. I even got education now. But what I've been trying to do is talk to the mayors, all 3 mayors, the past 3 mayors, but no one would talk to me. So I'm trying to give out a package just to give some kind of idea of what we can do, but we all have to do it together. Everybody got their opinions, you know, put in. And this young man, he seen me cooking for 100 homeless people. And he come and want help. So I'm giving him the flow. We can use you too. And thank you all. Oh, can we get, it's in District 5, so we want to try to give a pack to you. You got it? No, that's not it. That's yours. That's a personal pack. Okay, if we can utilize this building, it has everything in it. We can do training, we can put a police precinct on it. It's big enough for a lot of stuff. And at the chef saying as far as help, it has a kitchen that's workable. You know, maybe you can do cooking lessons, you know, cooking school.
Time has expired.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Real quick, sir, if y'all stay, excuse me, if y'all can just, Mr. Battles, if you can just stay right there, a member of my office is going to come give you my card, okay? If you stay right, you're going to stay for a minute. Some people from my office are going to come give you my card, okay? Yes, sir. I'll get you one.
Next up will be Howard Katzman. Due to yielded time, you'll have 4 minutes, and then DeJuan Robinson.
Good afternoon, members of the council. We emailed you copies of our tree ordinance amendments, and we hope they will be introduced soon into council. These amendments, and my comments will address these amendments, and I'm making 4 points today. Number one, the working group process was a failure. This was convened in 2022. The tree ordinance amendments you passed in December will not save any trees. In the 4 years we have worked to amend the ordinance, the builder lobbies and aligned groups we have talked to have always said no to any suggestions we have made, and they only want to maintain the status quo. We patiently participated in the working group process last year, but nothing productive resulted because the process itself allowed developers to veto all tree protection and recompense fee changes. Better tree protection was the most important part of the revision process, yet it was put aside last year with promises made to continue the work this year. While we spent another year in meetings, and takes me to my point number 2, the loss of healthy trees in the city of Atlanta doubled from fiscal year 21 to 22. Trees are Atlanta's greatest natural asset. We are losing trees at an increasing rate. Today, no trees are protected on developing sites in spite of us having a tree protection ordinance, and the city is losing 90% or more of the fair market value on trees cut by developers. This is also a subsidy to builders borne by the taxpayers. All this tree loss has direct costs to residents, from increased health care costs to stormwater fees. Flooding from stormwater is a growing problem in the city of Atlanta, directly tied to larger limits of lot disturbance and tree clearing. Number 3, please adopt our short list of amendments that creates a sustainable balance. We have worked for over 4 years to find practical solutions, and we have them drafted here. All our work has been vetted with industry professionals, including developers, architects, arborists, builders, and even the city planning department. Some of our provisions have even been adopted in cities like Seattle. Number 4, these are practical amendments that enable builders to continue to build. I am a former builder in the city. As an industry professional, I know these ideas can work. It is a false narrative that trees can't be saved if we are to continue building and preparing for an expected influx of people to our city. Why would we want to live here if we are going to lose most of our trees and the city becomes ever hotter and inhospitable? We can't afford to keep delaying, and business as usual is going to destroy our canopy. Please adopt our amendments. And please let us sit down with you, with each of you, so we can show you how our proposals will work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next will be DeJuan Robinson. Due to yielded time, you'll have up to 10 minutes.
Chef. Happy New Year afternoon, everyone. How you doing? I seen the article like everyone else, Mr. Shipman. I'm gonna keep it real clear and professional, because I know you tell me your kids watch. And I wanna say this because I'm ashamed of it, because I spoke with you about the appointments, because there's certain responsibilities as a city council president has, and one is appointing the council members to certain committees. We have a council member that has been on the public safety, Dustin Hillis, who doesn't care about the public. We've seen many people, black people, being killed and shot. The guy never shows up, the guy never reach out. Felicia Moore put him there because that's her friend. You kept him on and you put him back on. That was wrong and disrespectful when you got somebody like Mr. Bond, who born and raised here, know the whole Atlanta. Hey, this guy, this ICU nurse, doesn't know the whole Atlanta. He has to steal GPS certain parts of Atlanta. It's not public safety. 3 of the major committees we have white council members that are still chair when it comes to finance, transportation, and utilities. Mr. Alec Warren just got back on council when you was elected. He was put on finance. I felt that there was a disservice we had on other people that could have been on there. I mean, you put him on there, he's back on there again. Mr. Faroki, all due respect, I've been to many transportation meetings. He was absent. He's back as the chair. Come on, man. On some jobs, if you absent, you get fired. We know that. He's back on there. But with Mr. Warren and Mr. Faroki, I get it because they run two of the biggest nonprofits in Atlanta. So I get it because strategically, I see what you're doing. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. I have these 4 women here, these black women, who many black women champion them to vote for you.
Right. I voted.
Isn't that true?
Yes.
So when we understand you need money and votes, I feel that you're making moves about the money and making your moves for the things. But you had more numbers than Felicia Moore and Andre Dickens in the mayor race. I followed it. I'm a political scientist. I followed it. Your numbers show that maybe Doug can win this mayor race. Maybe Doug can run for mayor and win. The numbers are there. And you sure making the moves when you got Mr. Farouk and Alex Warren on there. And I just don't think it's right.
You don't think it's right?
Black, white, and fair. You had Richard Belcher up here and Glenn Burns talking about how fair these guys were. I don't think the moves that you made have been fair. And I just feel that you're new to the board. I can go for you keeping everything the same as it was when you got in. But when you had a chance to do it right with a fresh start watching everything, there's no way you can do that, Mr. Shipman, in good conscience, because to remove the women and the black women, and with all due respect, if it is true to the black woman that was given a chair position that they is disrespectful to accept it. The man give you a sirloin steak while they eat T-bone and filet mignon. And you accept a sirloin steak? Yeah. We cannot say the house is burning, y'all come save us, and then they rescue you and you sit in your comfortable seat. But we still in the house burning. We ain't going for that. No. So I don't know if it's true. If a black woman was promised that or offered that and she accepted it, is downright disrespectful. And this for a year, I'll be down here. The breaks are over. I'm coming to every committee. I'm coming there. I'll be bringing black voters every time because y'all not going to keep disrespecting us in this city. Black, white, poor, gay, straight, we are all the same. And you guys are doing us a disservice when you play politics. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. Right. You cannot do that. If you're going to put an article in the paper, stand on it. Vote on it. Ain't no backing up. If you're going to do it, stand on it. Be man and woman enough to stand on it. We got to stop playing. You guys are elected by old black women. Miss Carolyn, how old are you?
74.
74. Paved the way. Keisha Waits, Marcy Overstreet, Andrea Boone, paved the way for y'all to sit here and do that. And how dare y'all get these people to vote for him, and then you want to turn your back on them and then play game. We're not doing that. We're not going to do that in 2023. I promise you I'm going to be at every committee and everything, and we are not going to allow y'all to keep playing games and playing politics with the people. Finance committee, Mr. Warren don't allow people to donate time. The most important committee in this city, you talking about money? And he can run it how he want to run it? Downright disrespectful, and we cannot tolerate that. Okay. We cannot tolerate that. And to the members on here, to the black members that's on finance, come on, man, y'all know that ain't right. No. Come on, man, the most important finance and transportation, and y'all be going for that? Come on, man, we got a man that missed more days than any council member on there. And he back as the chair. Why? I'm not saying another black person should have been in his seat, but he shouldn't have been there if he don't care enough to be there. He shouldn't have been voted back in there. Right. You just can't do that, man. We just can't do that, Doug. We can't do that, man. No. We take the city backwards when we do that, man. People say Atlanta is too busy to hate, right? And we all know what it's supposed to be. We're always gonna have white and black that don't get along. But at this point, we have enough strong and white and black relationships, and when you do that, you take us backwards. I get up here every time and say how I stood up and gave my support to a white woman because I can stand on it because I don't make my money from the city. Ain't nothing they can do to me or stop me, so I can stand for whoever I want to stand for. But what we're not going to stand for in this city is to keep playing games with the seniors and the youth. And people like myself, we're not going to keep doing that, man. It's downright disrespectful. I went over there and played bingo with these singers and still doing it. Been doing it since 2006. Still do it with my own money. I still do it. Don't ask y'all for nothing. I never received a grant from a nonprofit for y'all. I never applied for it because I don't need it because I don't want to be bought. I can't be bought. And at the same time, when we sit over here and you say there was a black woman who was running against Doug, and you got black women that was saying, hey, vote for Mr. Shipman. He's a nice guy. And they voted for him against another black woman. I didn't stand in the way because that also is voter suppression, right? You know what I'm saying? When people say anybody but this person, that's voter suppression. I didn't stand in the way of that. They said, well, maybe Mr. Doug Shipman would be okay. He was over there at the Civil Rights Museum. You know what I'm saying? And we know that, you know what I'm saying, who help you get over there, and they playing games too, Doug, you know? And we just can't do that, man. We just cannot do that. And I'm not gonna allow, if it's true, to offer a council member that was complaining a chairperson job and she take it and wanna quiet the noise. We ain't going for that because it's bigger than her. It's bigger than her. And we got a whole nother year and we just can't accept that. I just think you 8 black council members and the rest of y'all should vote fair. Like, we can't stand for that. We need to veto these appointments and then say this ain't right, man. It ain't about putting the blacks as the chairs, but switching it up. Mr. Alec Warren have had his year as the finance chair. Give it to somebody else. I think Mr. Shook is a fair man. He's a reasonable man. Why he wasn't there? Matt has had his time as the chair finance. I mean, my understanding, he didn't want to go back there. Ms. Norwood probably declined to be at any chair. She's not appointed, but I'm quite sure that she said no. I would bet my bottom dollar she said no. But what I'm just telling you is, and what I'm asking, I'm not telling you nothing, I'm just asking you, you need to consider that. Because the way these people you have as chairperson treat the position ain't right. And you gotta see that, Mr. Shipman, and you gotta understand that there was a valiant effort this year when it came to black and white. And the same way they brought up Felicia Moore votes and it hunted her at the end. Don't fall for that same fate, my friend. Don't fall for that same fate. And people say in politics, there's no permanent friend, there's no permanent enemies. I don't care to be a friend or enemy because it's all about respect. And at the end of the day, I have a true relationship with the living God, and that's who support me and sustain me. So I don't care about being friends with no politician or enemy was a politician, but I really respect all of you, but I will not tolerate disrespect. And when you make moves like that, it's disrespectful, and thank you.
Next, we'll hear from, I believe it's Kateria Barnett. T. Barnett. Our final speaker,
Good afternoon. I am Taquaria Beard. I am the first vice president of the NAACP Georgia State Conference. I bring you greetings on behalf of our state president, Attorney Joe Griggs, who unfortunately cannot be here today, but also sends his sentiments. I would first like to say that I am extremely grateful to the Atlanta City Council President Shipman for ensuring that there will be a black woman serving on one of the 7 committees as a chair. Mr. Shipman, thank you. Thank you for working towards diversity. It's important in the city that, is built on the backs of Black women. Black women such as former Mayor Shirley Franklin, who continues to accurately reflect Black women in these spaces. I think that it's important that Black women are accurately reflected in all faces of power. As the youngest Black woman to serve in my position on the state conference for the NAACP here in Georgia, a state conference that is primarily comprised of Black women, I caution us to continue to be cognizant of our decision-making when pushing for legislation and placing women in positions of power, and in doing so, doing it with the spirit of unity and a spirit that is inclusive to all women, including women of color. I thank each of you for hearing my sentiments on today, and I assure you that this will not be the last time you see me. I can assure you that this will also not be the last time that you see many members of the NAACP who will make sure that there is a representation of women in our positions of power. Thank you again, Councilwoman Overstreet and Councilwoman Boone, for being a positive light and reflecting women, inspiring young women like me to stand up here and speak publicly and openly and fight for social justice spaces just like you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our final speaker today will be Edith Lattimore.
First, let me thank you for allowing me to speak. Had a previous engagement and someone called me and asked me to come down here and to express the views of the community. We are very concerned. I live in Adams Park, and I have a nonprofit called SWETCO, Southwest Economic Development Corporation, which we have had since 1972. We have tried a number of years to try to get funds from the city in order to move our community, and we've been denied. Mr. Shipp, you remember me quite well when I came down here for the $16 million that was allocated for Cascade Springs, and we got the money. We got the vote from the people and from the council, but we never got the money. Those are the kinds of things that we're concerned about because our community is deteriorating. We see every community around the city doing quite well. So why isn't our community doing better at Cascade Road and Campbellton Road? We have concerns about the entire body and how monies are being distributed to communities, especially those communities of color. We're asked CD, state to come in and get involved because we know that what is being done through that budgeting planning process is not fair. It's very discriminatory, and we need to address that. We've contacted HUD, we filed a complaint with the Department of Justice. We want justice for our people, and we're going to get it one way or the other.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all members of the public who have come into chambers today to provide their comments. Next, we'll move to the report of the Journal. Mr. Clerk.
I, Forrest Webb III, Municipal Clerk, do certify that the action minutes of the December 5th, 2022 City Council meeting are true and correct.
If there aren't any revisions to the minutes, I'd entertain a motion to adopt. Moved by Councilmember Bakhtiari, seconded by Councilmember Wan. Is there any discussion on the adoption of the minutes? Hearing none, we can do this via unanimous consent. Any objection? Mr. Clerk, please sound the count. Unanimous consent on the motion to adopt.
Unanimous consent of members present is 14 yeas, 0 nays.
14 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. Next, we'll move to communications. Mr. Clerk.
23-C-0001, a communication from Chief Procurement Officer Jadip Manjandar submitting the November 1st, 2022 through November 30th, 2022 monthly contracts report to the Atlanta City Council and Clerk of Council pursuant to Section 2-1142 of the Atlanta City Code of Ordinances. Staff recommendation to accept and file.
Let it follow that course.
23-C-0002, a communication from Councilmember Mary Norwood, District 8, appointing Mr. Michael Tyler to serve as a member of the Atlanta Commission on Fatherhood, Men and Boys. This appointment is for a term of 2 years. Staff recommendation to refer to Committee on Council.
Let it follow that course.
If I could sound items 3 and 4 as a block.
Without objection, please proceed.
23-C-0003, a communication from Council Members Liliana Bakhtiari, District 5, Alex Wan, District 6, Howard Shook, District 7, Mary Norwood, District 8, and Matt Westmoreland, Post 2 at Large, appointing Mr. Bennett Foster to serve as a member of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Planning Commission, 23-C-0004, a communication from Mayor Andre Dickens, appointing Mr. Shaveen King III to serve as a member of the City of Atlanta Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee. This appointment is for a term of 2 years. Staff recommendation to refer to Community Development and Human Services Committee and Committee on Council.
Let both items follow that course.
Final item is 23-C-0005, a communication from Mayor Andre Dickens, appointing Ms. Kimberly Alexander to serve as a member of the Zoning Review Board. This appointment is for a term of 2 years. Staff recommendation to revert to Zoning and Committee on Council.
Let it follow that course.
That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is there any vetoed legislation for consideration?
There is none.
Is there any unfinished business?
There is none.
Thank you. We'll next move to the consent agenda, section 1. It begins on page 4 of your materials. These are items that are for second read, and the appropriate motion is to adopt. But first, let me ask, are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda by colleagues? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda, section 1. Moved by Councilmember Juan, seconded by Councilmember Bakhtiari. Is there any discussion on the motion to adopt the consent agenda, section 1? Hearing none, we'll open the vote. Mr. Clerk, please open the vote on the motion to adopt.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Please vote. The vote is now closed. 15 yeas, 0 nays.
15 yeas, 0 nays. The motion to adopt the consent agenda, section 1 carries. We'll now move to the consent agenda, section 2. It begins on page 18. These are items for first reading. The appropriate motion is to refer. First, let me ask, are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda, section 2? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to refer. Moved by Councilmember Juan, seconded by Councilmember Bakhtiari. Is there any discussion on the motion to refer the consent agenda, section 2? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Mr. Clerk, please open the vote on the motion to refer.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Will everyone please vote?
Who is yes?
The vote is now closed. 15 yeas, 0 nays.
15 yeas, 0 nays. The motion to refer carries. We'll now move to the report of standing committees. The committee reports will be given today by the last year's committee chairs, and we will first begin with the Committee on Council. Chair Boone.
Good afternoon. Please turn to page 21 on your agenda for the report of the Standing Committee of Committee on Council. Council President, may I sign item 1?
Without objection, please proceed.
Item 22-C-5083. 1, a communication from Councilmember Alex 1, District 6, appointing Mr. William Baker to serve as a member of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Planning Commission. This item was filed by the committee. Motion to file.
There's been a motion to file 22-C-5083 coming out of committee. Is there any discussion on the motion to file? Given this is a communication, we can do this via unanimous consent. Is there any objection to the motion to file? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, please sound the count on the unanimous consent on the motion to file.
Unanimous consent of members present is 15 yeas, 0 nays.
15 yeas, 0 nays. The motion to file carries.
Mr. President, may I sound item 2 through 4? These items were found favorable.
Without objection, please proceed.
22-C-5184, a communication from Council President Doug Shipman appointing Mr. Claude Weinstead to serve as a member of the Stakeholder Oversight Committee. This appointment is for a term of 2 years. Item 3, 22-C-5185, a communication from Mayor Andre Dickens appointing Ms. Jennifer Ide to serve as a member of the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority MARTA Board of Directors for the City of Atlanta. This appointment is for a term of 4 years. Item 4, 22-C-5186, a communication from Mayor Andre Dickens appointing Mr. Jacob Tagabi to serve as a member of the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority MARTA Board of Directors from the City of Atlanta. This appointment is for a term of 4 years. These items were found favorable. Motion to adopt.
There's a motion to adopt coming out of committee 22-C-5184, 5185, and 5186. These are communications, so we can do this via unanimous consent without objections. Is there any objection to the motion to adopt these 3 items? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, please sound the count on the unanimous consent on the motion to adopt.
Unanimous consent of members present is 15 yeas, 0 nays.
15 yeas, 0 nays. The motion to adopt carries.
This concludes my report.
Thank you. Next will be the Zoning Committee. Chair Overstreet.
Look at you.
Sorry about that.
Hello, everyone. Okay, Zoning Committee report. Let's all turn our pages to 23. And we'll start with our ordinances for first read. And I would like to take items number 1 and through items number 3 as a block, please.
Without objection, please proceed.
Thank you. Item number 1. (22-0-1898), case number U-22-29, location 250 14th Street Northeast, aka 244 14th Street Northeast. The purpose of the ordinance is to grant a special use permit to serve excess development density. Number 2. Legislative number 22-0-1899, case number U-22-30. The location is 2490 Hosea Williams Drive Northeast. The ordinance is for special use permit for a place of worship. And number 3. Legislative item 22-0-1900, case number MRPA-22-05, location 2022 West Paces Ferry Road Northwest. The ordinance is to grant a certificate under the provisions of the Metropolitan River Protection Act. The motion is to refer items 1 through 3 to ZRB and Zoning Committee.
There's a motion to refer items 1 through 3 to the ZRB and Zoning Committee. I heard a second from Councilmember Lewis. Is there any discussion on the motion to refer these 3 items? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Mr. Clerk, please open the vote on the motion to refer.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is now closed. 15 yeas, 0 nays.
15 yeas, 0 nays. The motion to refer carries.
Thank you, Council President. I believe that's it.
Thank you. Next will be the Public Safety Committee. Chair Hillis.
Mr. President, we have no report this cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be the City Utilities Committee. Chair Shook.
No report.
Thank you. Next will be the Community Development and Human Services Committee. Chair Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Next will be the Transportation Committee. Chair Faroki.
Thank you, Council President Shipman. We have 3 items today. The first is 22-0-1604. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Alex Wan authorizing the mayor or his designee to make the intersection of Lennox Road Northeast and Wildwood Road Northeast an always stop controlled intersection, to authorize the ATL DOT to install stop signs at the intersection. Per request of the sponsor, we will file this paper.
Is it a motion to file coming out of committee or?
That's correct. Motion to file.
Motion to file coming out of committee. It doesn't need a second. Is there any discussion on the motion to file 22-0-1604? Hearing none, we'll move to vote. Mr. Clerk, please open the vote on the motion to file.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Please vote. The vote is now closed. 14 yeas, 0 nays.
Ms. Boone, want to vote? She said she voted. She said she's a yay.
Duly noted, populating vote. 15 yeas, 0 nays.
15 yeas, 0 nays. The motion to file carries.
Our next item is 22R 4827. This is item 2 on page 35. This came out of committee, favorable on condition. The condition's been met. The caption reads, a resolution by Transportation Committee adopting the strategic delivery plan for the Moving Atlanta Forward 2022 infrastructure program on behalf of the ATL DOT. Again, this came out of committee, favorable on condition. The condition was that Councilmember Overstreet was going to add some commentary to the report and the plan. I think that has been completed. So we will move to adopt.
So motion to adopt coming out of committee. It doesn't need a second. 22-R-4827. Is there any discussion on the motion to adopt? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Madam Deputy Clerk, please open the vote on the motion to adopt.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 15 yeas, 0 nays.
15 yeas, 0 nays. The motion to adopt carries.
And our final item today on the report is 22R 4830, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of ATL DOT to issue a work order under IFB C1210241, installation of traffic calming measures with Georgia Paving, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $2,226,920 for the installation of traffic calming measures, with all contractor work to be charged to and paid from various fund, department, organizational account numbers listed herein. This paper came out of committee favorable on condition, the condition being one that was requested by Councilmember Wan for the department to provide a project list of the traffic calming measures that would be installed under this contract. That condition has been satisfied with a list of speed tables and other traffic calming installations across the city. And so the motion will be to adopt as amend. Well, we need to amend to attach the legislation first. So I will move to amend to do that.
Why don't you actually make a motion to adopt, and then we'll have a motion to amend. There's a motion to amend. The motion to adopt is coming out of committee, correct?
I think, yes.
Yes, okay. So there's a motion to adopt coming out of committee. It doesn't need a second. And then you've made a motion to amend.
Correct.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Lewis. Is there any discussion on the motion to amend? Councilmember, no. Okay. Does everybody have do we have a copy of the amendment that's?
I have it in front of me. It should have been shared with everyone, but we do have a list of.
All right, is there any discussion on the motion to amend?
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion to amend? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Madam Deputy Clerk, please open the vote on the motion to amend.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 15 yeas, 0 nays.
15 yeas, 0 nays. The motion to amend carries. We are now moving back to the motion to adopt as amended. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Wan.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I first want to thank the department for preparing this list. It is good to see that there will be 90 speed tables that will be installed as a result of this contract. We've been talking about it a lot in Transportation Committee in terms of the backlog and the urgent need for just pedestrian and traffic safety in our transportation infrastructure. So I think this is a good start. However, it is very troubling for me to see the list if you then sort it by the funding source. In particular, colleagues, if you take a look at this, what you will see is an extreme concentration of installation or proposed installations that are being funded by council member funds to just 3 or 4 council districts, yet the rest of the council districts are being funded by city funds. And I think that's incredibly disappointing because it shows a lack of equity in terms of these projects and the selection and the prioritization of where these projects go. Because we've all been told there's been a funding challenge, and those of us that have stepped up with council district funds to try and get it going only have done so only to find that somehow or another other projects have magically found money from city sources to install. The other thing that's troubling is, as I've said before, there lacks a strategy in terms of how these are placed and decided on. It seems like whoever gets in line first gets them, and I think that is a very poor reflection of just transportation project management. While I am going to support this because I think it's important that now that we have a contract that we can use and funding, that we get these underway, I just want to say this is a warning shot for future projects. In terms of transportation speed tables coming through, I would hope and expect to see a more coherent strategy and plan than who's willing to step up and fund it, who's willing to get in line first. It just seems rather haphazard. So with that, I've spoken my piece.
Councilmember Lewis.
And so I think I'm the opposite of Councilmember Juan on this. I like that we were able to find the funding to actually get this done. And my support on it, I do also like that it's first come, first serve with some of this stuff because my district, some of the streets have just been neglected for so long that I've been throwing them out there. And so I'm hopeful that because I did put them out there first, that I do get the funding. But thank you.
Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have to agree with Councilmember Juan on his points that, these are, at least in my experience, one of the biggest requests that come into our council offices, yet there's, a large number of these that are spent through council funds, and of course, that if that's the district members' preference to use council funds to fund these, that's one thing, but then just seeing the inequity in the districts. District 9 has one road on here that it shares with, I believe, District 3. Yet we've submitted multiple ones. Some of those get approved and some do not. And also just echoing a big conversation that was had under the previous transportation commissioner is we're spending egregious amounts of money for speed tables on local roads that do not have pedestrian deaths or vehicle-related deaths on them. And when you try to get speed calming on collector or arterial streets, it's, oh, we can't do that, that's against our policy, even though that was actually revised with the legislation during the last term. So glad these are getting done, but I just think that perhaps I'm not on that committee, but the Transportation Committee and the incoming Transportation Commissioner can have a larger conversation about how we move forward, especially since we have claimed for a few years now to be a Vision Zero city, yet I've seen no action taken under that. Thank you.
Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to support the legislation. I just wanted to make a point that whenever these speed tables are put in place, regardless of the pot of funds, all citizens benefit and all citizens potentially could use the street. So ultimately, there needs to be a ready, identifiable source of funds for this purpose. That doesn't necessarily come out of a district council member's allotment, since everyone in the city potentially could ride on that street regardless of where they live or what district they originate out of. And then two, to Councilmember Hillis's point about the department's position on what they say is policy versus obeying ordinances. This body passed an ordinance a year and a half ago to install 2 traffic lights at the intersection of Boone and Sunset and at the intersection of Boone and Vine, and they're still not there. And I responded to an email on a separate subject matter from the department, and I got a good response, a thorough response about what their policy was, but it's my understanding, and the law department can correct me, is that no department, no citizen, no person within the city of Atlanta who's subject to city of Atlanta laws can defy the law. Is that correct, law department? That when we pass a law, people have to obey it?
Yes, if it's an ordinance, it certainly has to be followed.
All right, thank you. So we passed an ordinance a year and a half ago to install 2 traffic lights, and they're still not there. So I hope, Mr. Chair, Mr. Farokhi, that you will address this at your next committee meeting. I'm not on the committee, but I hope that you all put a pin and will ask them when they will install these lights. It has now officially been a year and 6 months. And I don't want to hear a policy discussion because we've literally passed a law that it would happen. And so I hope that will happen. But then on my prior point, we should simply in the budget coming up set aside a line item for these speed tables because everybody in the city potentially can transverse them, can use them, doesn't matter where they're coming from. It shouldn't come out of a district person's budget.
Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I have to agree with everyone else has spoken. I'm frustrated because of the fact that, for example, the pedestrian safety issues in my district, there had quite a few pedestrian fatalities that happened in District 5. So what did I do? I launched my own study of sidewalks because I had to because of the lack of funds. I'm doing my own study in partnership with Georgia Tech to create an urgency list on what needs to be done where we had the highest level of fatalities, accidents, et cetera, proximity to schools, senior towers, all of this. And I don't understand why the same thing hasn't been done for streets and why we don't have an urgency list that's not a full citywide assessment so that it's not going to one specific area, but instead we're improving streets that are relevant to people's to accidents, fatalities, et cetera. We have all this crash data, and I am very confused as to why. I mean, I was happy to fund it out of my own TSLOS money and out of my own district, but a lot of us have crash data, fatality numbers, everything else that need assistance. And I'm not saying all circulated into one area. I'm saying it should be equitably done across the board. And I'm very confused as to how money suddenly showed up when this has been an issue for this long. So that's all.
Councilmember Norwood.
I wanted to speak to the larger issue, which is when we look at the $750 million that the citizens approved and that we approved, when you actually look at that list, there's only 3.5% of that list for street repairs. There are tremendous amounts of money for complete streets, for recreation facilities, for parks improvements, and for beltline improvements. Tremendous amounts of money. But for those of us that don't have those particular items in our district, there is a paucity of money that is going. So in addition to this one little bucket. As Ms. Bakhtiari said, she wasn't able to get money. I wasn't able to get money for a traffic study for District 8 a year ago. I've waited an entire year. I will be using my own funds. I was not allowed to use campaign funds. I was not allowed to proceed for an entire year with a district that is suffocating from traffic. I asked for 8 streets to be resurfaced because they're commuter streets. I was not allowed to get that money. I asked for impact fees to be used for the streets that are falling apart because of the commuter traffic. I was told that was inappropriate and that would have to go to committee. So I, like all of you, am glad when occasionally there are a few things that my district gets. But when you look at the overall $750 million and start analyzing where that money goes, and that's fair, people voted on it, but we really need to look at everything that comes across transportation this year as part of that total package, not part of one piece of legislation and one line item.
Councilmember Lewis.
I just want to make sure that they know from District 12, we are encouraging folks in ATL DOT to go and find more money. We're encouraging the mayor's staff to be shifty and crafty to go and find more money for stuff. I remember when I first got elected, and I asked a senior council member about speed tables in this area of the city, and he said, I put them everywhere. Anywhere you can put them, I put them. And I was riding around my community where we don't have them. And just to see them coming up now, on Oak Drive and on Empire Drive, to see folks calling me saying we can finally get people to slow down has me feeling a special kind of way. And so to see the mayor find more money, I want to encourage the mayor and his team to continue to find the money so we can continue doing stuff all around Atlanta. I know a lot of the rules changed last year. We went from it being a resolution, from an ordinance to a request. And so I'm super happy with the mayor for finding money and hearing our complaints and putting up speed tables all around Atlanta. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the motion to adopt as amended 22-R-4830? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Madam Deputy Clerk, please open the vote on the motion to adopt as amended.
The vote is open. Would everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 15 yeas, 0 nays.
15 yeas, 0 nays. The motion to adopt as amended carries.
Thank you. And before I yield the podium to the next committee chair, I just would note I want to appreciate my colleagues' comments and expressions of frustrations. I heard 2 things. One is that our demand for traffic calming measures obviously exceeds our budgetary line item for it, which is what that document reflects. And so that's within our power as we head into budget season next year. If we, as has been the case for the last few years, if the demand from all of us in our districts for more traffic calming measures is exceeding what we're setting aside in the budget, we can rectify that. Of course, there's hard choices to be made, but it's one that I would encourage us all to lean into as we hit the budget season. And 2, Councilmember Bond, I heard your comment on the 2 traffic lights. You've been waiting a year and a half, 2 years. I suspect all of us have, I have a hawk signal that's been 4 years in the making on North Avenue that still hasn't gone in. You know, the execution pace at the city is something that frustrates all of us. And I'm happy to raise your 2 issues at committee with our new transportation commissioner. He'll be with us next meeting. But I think that's a point of frustration that many of us have had for a long time, whether it's a procurement challenge or some other bureaucratic challenge. The speed with which these projects are getting executed can be demoralizingly slow. DeKalb Avenue is a good example of that. And so I hear you. I think we all hear each other on this. I think it's on all of us to push the department and procurement to find ways to execute faster. But on the traffic calming, I think we'll need to look at ways to, one, increase the funding pool to meet the demand at the district level. But two, we want to make sure that they're going in across the city, so we need to look at doing it equitably. Thank you.
Thank you. Final committee, standing committee today will be the Finance Exec Committee, Chair Juan.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we are on page 40 of the agenda. We only have one item today. It's 22-R4035, a resolution by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency for the operation and management of Cafe 55, located at City Hall, and a smoothie snack bar located in the City of Atlanta Employment Wellness Center on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management and the Department of Human Resources and for other purposes. Because this is a duplicate paper, motion from the committee is to file.
There's a motion coming out of committee to file 22-R-4035. It does not need a second. Is there any discussion on the motion to file? Hearing none, we'll move to vote. Madam Deputy Clerk, please open the vote on the motion to file.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 14 yeas, 0 nays.
14 yeas, 0 nays. The motion to file carries.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Thank you. That concludes the reports of the standing committees. We'll now move to personal papers and items. There are none for immediate consideration, so we'll move to items for referral. We'll start with Councilmember Faroki.
Thank you. I have two papers. Elms number 31753, an ordinance by Councilmember Amir Faroki authorizing the transfer of $50,000 from the Council District 2 carry forward account to the Council District 2 expense account to continue serving the Atlanta community for the public good and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31753 will be referred to the Finance Exec Committee.
And Elms number 31754, a resolution by Councilmember Amir Faroki authorizing the mayor or his designee to make an all-way stop at the intersection of Ralph McGill Boulevard Northeast and Fortune Street Northeast to request the ATL DOT to install stop signs at the intersection and for other purposes.
Elms ID 37154 will be referred to the Transportation Committee. Councilmember Amos.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I have one AMS number ID 31746, an ordinance by Councilmember Byron D. Amos, an ordinance to authorize the mayor or his designee to reinstate retroactively to December 19, 2022, a contract FC-10383, pools and splash pad management and maintenance with American King Joint Ventures to extend the term of the contract through March 18, 2023 in an amount not to exceed $150,000 to designate accounts in which payment will be charged, from which payments will be made, to correct the retroactive date to which agreement was previously reinstated to December 19, 2021, to ratify all actions taken by the city since December 19, 2022, and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31746 will be referred to the CDHS Committee. Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. President. My first item is Elms number 31739, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier, Matt Westmoreland, Liliana Bakhtiari, Jason Winston, Dustin Hillis, Amir Faroki, Howard Shook, Mary Norwood, Andrea Boone, Keisha Waits, and Marcy Collier Overstreet to amend Part 3 3 Code of Ordinance. All right, there we go. To amend Part 3 Code of Ordinances, Land Development Code, Part 16, Zoning, Chapter 36, Beltline Overlay and District Regulations, Section 16-36.020, off-street parking and loading requirements so as to require no minimum amount of parking and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31739 will be referred to the CDHS committee.
Thank you. Next item is Elms number 31740, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier, Matt Westmoreland, Liliana Bakhtiari, Jason Winston, Dustin Hillis, Alex Wan, Amir Faroki, Howard Shook, Mary Norwood, Andrea Boone, Keisha Waits, Marcy Collier Overstreet, and Michael Julian Bond to amend Part 3 Code of Ordinances, Land Development Code, Part 16, Zoning, Chapter 36, Beltline Overlay and District Regulations, Section 16-36-008, permitted and prohibited uses and structures to prohibit the addition of new drive-through and drive-in facilities within the Beltline Overlay District and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31740 will be referred to the CDHS committee.
Next item is Elms number 31741, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier, Matt Westmoreland, Liliana Bakhtiari, Jason Winston, Dustin Hillis, Byron Amos, Alex Wan, Antonio Lewis, Howard Shook, Mary Norwood, Andrea Boone, Keisha Waits, Marcy Collier Overstreet, and Michael Julian Bond to amend Part 3 Code of Ordinances, Land Development Code, Part 16, Zoning, Chapter 36, Beltline Overlay and District Regulations, Section 16-36.008, permitted and prohibited uses and structures to prohibit the addition of new service stations within the Beltline Overlay District and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31741 will be referred to the CDHS committee.
Ooh, this is a long one. Next item is Elms ID number 31743, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier authorizing the ratification of services rendered by 949-953 Washington Street Apartments, LLC, 8 Venira, LLC, and GNS Santa Fe, LLC from January 1st, 2023 through the execution date of the rental agreement authorized herein and for the purpose of paying rental subsidies on behalf of low-income families pursuant to the Section 8 Moderate Rehabilitation Program sponsored by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, to authorize the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Department of Grants and Community Development to enter into housing assistance payments contracts with 949-953 Washington Street Apartments, LLC, for 16 units at Washington Street Apartments in an amount not to exceed $210,684.00 with 8 Venira LLC for 28 units at Venira Village in an amount not to exceed $365,420.00 and with GNS Santa Fe Villas LLC for 100 units at Santa Fe Villas in an amount not to exceed $661,332.00. All contracts retroactively commencing January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
Elms ID
Sorry.
Elms ID 31743 will be referred to the CDHS committee.
Our next item is Elms ID number 31744, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier amending the FY 2023 budget intergovernmental grant fund by adding to anticipations and appropriations in the total amount of $1,237,436.00, increasing the budget amount authorized by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for the City of Atlanta Section 8 Moderate Rehabilitation Program for the housing assistance payment contracts for 949-953 Washington Street Apartments, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $210,684.00. 8 Venira Village, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $365,420.00. And GNS Santa Fe Villas, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $661,332.00 and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31744 will be referred to the CDHS committee.
All right, and this is a short one. This next one is Elms ID 31745, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier to ratify services rendered and to authorize payment of invoices in connection with expired agreement FC-10001 with East Civis Incorporated during a period retroactive from May 1st, 2022 through October 31st, 2022, and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31745 will be referred to the CDHS committee.
That concludes my papers for introduction.
Thank you. Councilmember Hillis.
First item, Elms 31742, an ordinance by council members Dustin R. Hillis and Byron Amos, extending the moratorium on the acceptance of any application for special administrative permit, special use permit, special exception, land disturbance permit, or building permit for which a special administrative permit has not been applied for, or relating to certain specified uses within the Upper West Side Improvement District Master Plan Study Area established by Ordinance 220-1160 for a period not to exceed 180 days and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31742 will be referred to the Zoning Committee.
Next item, Elms ID 31737, a resolution by Councilmember Dustin Hillis opposing federal and state legislation allowing for increased truck weights and/or truck lengths on interstate highways, state routes, and local streets, supporting federal and state legislation, freezing current truck weight and length limits, and urging Congress and the Georgia General Assembly to pass such legislation and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31737 will be referred to the Finance Exec Committee.
Elms ID 31707, an ordinance by Councilmember Dustin Hillis to authorize the mayor or his designee to authorize the chief financial officer to execute a master lease agreement with blank for the acquisition of 3 Spartan 1,500 gallon per minute custom reserve fire pumpers on behalf of the City of Atlanta Fire Rescue Department in an amount not to exceed $2,354,991.00 and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31707 will be referred to the Finance Exec Committee.
That completes my items. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Norwood.
First one is Elms 31747, an ordinance by Councilwoman Mary Norwood to amend the Atlanta zoning ordinance by creating a new chapter 18Y SPI 25 to be entitled Tuxedo Park Neighborhood District Regulations, and to amend the official zoning map by changing the designation of properties within the Tuxedo Park Neighborhood District so as to add SPI 25 to the district designation and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31747 will be referred jointly to the Zoning and ZRB committees.
The next one is Elms 31748, a resolution by Councilmember Mary Norwood requesting the mayor or his designee to make the intersection of Deering Road and Haskell Road Northwest an always stop controlled intersection, to request the Atlanta Department of Transportation install an always stop at the intersection of Deering Road and Haskell Road and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31748 will be referred to the Transportation Committee.
Elms 31750, a resolution by Councilmember Mary Norwood authorizing the mayor or his designee to install traffic calming devices on North Cliff Drive Northwest between Howell Mill Road Northwest and Brookview Drive Northwest and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31750 will be referred to the Transportation Committee. Councilmember Boone.
Elms number 31706, a resolution by Councilmember Andrea Boone, Marcy Collier Overstreet, Dustin Hillis, Antonio Lewis, a resolution requesting approval of the memorandum of understanding between the mayor and the Professional Association of City Employees, Atlanta PACE, NAGE Local R5-50, and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31706 will be referred to the Community Development Committee.
A resolution by Councilmember Andrea Boone, a resolution requesting the mayor or his designee to install traffic calming devices on Braemar Avenue Southwest and for other purposes. Elms number 31736. 31736.
Elms ID 31736 will be referred to the Transportation Committee. Councilmember Overstreet.
Elms ID number 31695, a resolution by Finance Committee and Marcy Collier Overstreet, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to issue task order number 2 for contract RFPS-1210025B, citywide architectural planning, design, engineering, and construction phase services with Fitzgerald Collaborative Group, LLC, for the implementation of a real estate transaction strategy development plan at 2 Peachtree Tower on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management in an amount not to exceed $400,000.00. All work will be charged to and paid from accounts listed and for other purposes.
Helms ID 31695 will be referred to the Finance Exec Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lewis. Ready?
Thank you, President. Elms ID 31705, a resolution by Councilmember Antonio Lewis, Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari, Councilmember Michael Julian Bond, Councilmember Andrea Boone, Councilmember Mary Norwood, Councilmember Matt Westmoreland, Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet, Councilmember Byron Amos, Councilmember Dustin Hillis, Councilmember Jason Dozer, Councilmember Amir Faruqi. A resolution requesting approval of the memorandum of the MOU between the mayor and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, ASME Local 1644, and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31705 will be referred to the CDHS Committee.
Elms ID 31755, an ordinance by Councilmember Antonio Lewis, Marcy Collier Overstreet, Michael Julian Bond, Councilmember Keisha Waits, Councilmember Byron Amos, Councilmember Andrea Boone, Councilmember Matt Westmoreland, Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari, Councilmember Jason Dozer, Councilmember Byron Amos, and Councilmember Amir Faruqi, an ordinance to amend the Atlanta City Council Code of Ordinance chapter to establish procedures and requirements to prevent the theft of motor vehicles and parts, including catalytic converters and other precious metal car parts, and to impose penalties for non-compliances and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31755 will be referred to the Public Safety Committee. Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. President. Have Elms ID number 31752, an ordinance by Michael Julian Bond authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $600.00 from the Post-One at Large Carry Forward account to the St. Paul's Episcopal Church to support their annual book scholarship program and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31752 will be referred to the Finance Exec Committee.
That concludes my papers.
Thank you. Councilmember Westmoreland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Elms number 31751, an ordinance by Council members Matt Westmoreland and Antonio Lewis, authorizing a donation in amount not to exceed $25,000 to the Atlanta Technical College Foundation and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31751 will be referred to the Finance Exec Committee.
Elms number 31749, an ordinance by Councilmembers Matt Westmoreland, Liliana Bakhtiari, and Alex Wan, authorizing a donation amount not to exceed $2,000.00 to Outfront Theater and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31749 will be referred to the Finance Exec Committee.
Elms number 31684, an ordinance by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland to amend Chapter 2, Article 3, Division 1, Section 2-190B, and Chapter 2, Article 4, Section 2-203 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to establish the Mayor's Office of Policy. In order to ensure the efficient and effective development and implementation of the policy agenda and initiatives of the mayor, to authorize the chief financial officer to create the appropriate department organizations and to add to anticipate and appropriate the necessary funding in connection with the creation of the mayor's office of policy, to authorize the chief financial officer and the commissioner of the Department of Human Resources to transfer any positions currently assigned to any office or department operating under the executive branch to the mayor's office of policy, as shall be necessary to facilitate the immediate commencement of the operation of the mayor's office of policy and for other purposes.
Elms ID 31684 will be referred to the CDHS committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that concludes all of the papers for referral. We'll now move into general remarks. Councilmember Boone.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Today, we as Black women stand on the shoulders of Mayor Shirley Franklin, Keisha Lance Bottoms, Myrtle Davis, Carolyn Long Banks, Cleta Winslow, Natalie Archibald, Abel Mabel Thomas, Emma I. Darnell, and so many more who broke the glass ceiling of this very building, Atlanta City Hall. Because of this article that we as Black women published, we now have a seat at the table. To my colleagues, my younger ones, you must reject bias. You must reject sexism. You must reject bigotry. You must reject this at all costs. To all of those groups that supported us, Georgia Stand Up, NAACP, our faith-based community, numerous women's organizations, thank you for your hard work and diligence. It is because of you and because of the political pressure that we as Black women today have a seat at the table. Lastly, in the words of John Lewis, this is serious business. It could be you next. When you see something that is not right, that is not fair, that is not just, you have a moral obligation to do something, to say something. That concludes my remarks.
Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier in the meeting, I've failed to acknowledge that this past January 1st was not only New Year's Day, but more importantly, was Emancipation Day. It's the 160th anniversary of the issuing of the Emancipation Proclamation in America that made initially African Americans who were held in declared Confederate states free, which resulted after the end of the Civil War in the 13th passage of the 13th and 14th Amendments. Now, I know people have made much about Juneteenth, and we should celebrate Juneteenth because that was the occasion when all had gotten the news about the Emancipation Proclamation and were declared free. But this is a seminal day in the history of our country, and just wanted to make sure that it did not go without notice here today in our proceedings this particular year, given Atlanta's and Georgia's unique and often strange history in the continuum of history within the United States. So I'll close with that.
Thank you. Councilmember Overstreet.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that all of my colleagues know that I did get word of a specific vote that we will be taking today, and I want to thank you all for just having my back and for understanding the importance of the history of Atlanta. It's never easy doing the right thing, but it's even harder if you do nothing. And I only saw myself in 2 months looking back and answering a question from a little girl or another black woman asking me, what happened with council? Why isn't there any black representation for women on the council now in a leadership position? And guess what? There's always been black female leadership in the city of Atlanta, whether it be the mayor's office or the presidential seat or on council in leadership for decades. And I know in 2 months, I wouldn't be able to look at myself and think I didn't say one word. So it was important to me to actually speak up for black women. It was important to me to speak up for the heritage of the city of Atlanta. What we cannot do is allow ourselves to be diluted slowly. Every ethnic and racial makeup of this city is unique. This council shows that. I am very thankful to serve alongside all of you because we do make up an extremely diverse group of people that always seem to find a common ground. And I appreciate that about all of you. And I will say that when asked several times, what kind of outcome would you like to have from the ad that you placed in the AJC? I made sure everyone knew over and over again, and I'm talking about all of the support that came to me via text, emails, in person, interviews with every single news outlet that is in Atlanta. I've said over and over again, what I don't want to do is remove anyone as chair, because I think all 15 of us are more than capable of being phenomenal chairs for the city of Atlanta. That was never my goal. My goal was just to make sure that our diversity and our demographics here in Atlanta would never be diluted, not even unintentionally. It's important that we're very intentional in a city like the city of Atlanta with such a rich heritage of history, black history, civil history, justice history. We cannot idly sit by and not acknowledge that as often as we need to. So that was my goal, is to make sure that this type of thing never happens again. Again, intentionally or unintentionally. And I do feel like that's where we are now, because now it's a conversation. And conversations like this are never easy. It's not comfortable for me or anyone else. It's something I prefer not to do. I just want to take care of the city. But sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And I really appreciate knowing that we had the support of so many giants outside of this building and inside the building. I am just very thankful. So it just allows me to work harder and work more and continue to stand tall as a black woman, and I appreciate that. I yield.
Councilmember Amos.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. It's two names I should have mentioned when we was earlier giving our remorse. To Mr. Armstead Salters Sr., educational leader in the city of Atlanta, former Washington High graduate, also former principal of Gideon's High School. We lost him over the holiday break as well. And then to the Atlanta Housing Commissioner, Rosalind Richardson Elliott. She actually lost her mother over the holiday break as well. So definitely want to put those two families in our prayers. But last but not least, I just want to say to the citizens of Atlanta who showed that we could get together, celebrate, have a good time. Unfortunately, there was one incident, reported incident, but overall, the return of the peace drop was an amazing thing. Everyone got together, had a good time, and everyone went home safely. If we can get rid of the celebratory gun shooting, we'll be okay on that front. But also to my law enforcement, APD, Fulton County Sheriff, who kept us straight got the traffic in and out of the city, had a spectacular time at the Peach Bowl. Once again, Atlanta shined. So I just want to say thank you to the residents, and let's keep it up.
Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you, President. Today, I was joined by my wife for the first time in City Council, Ashley Lewis. My future council person or a congressperson or mayor or governor, and Harvard freshman Allison Hunter, black woman, and my cousin, my first cousin, Camila Freeman, black woman, sophomore at Alabama State University. They came today because it was supposed to be the 1-year anniversary of me being sworn in to my dream job. And that's why they were here today. They also, but while here today, they were able to witness policymakers making change in front of their eyes. They were able to see it happen in front of their eyes. This morning, yesterday, I have not been able to walk with my head up as high as I usually do around black women because they were asking me, where you stand at, my brother? Where you at? You sitting on your hands down there? That's what somebody asked me, are you sitting on your hands down there? To have the black women with me today, my wife, my Allison, and my cousin, and to know always my grandmother is with me and my mother is with me, today I stood up. Today I stood up. I know I was working full time to make sure that we can have representation because we seen people that didn't come to work and they kept their positions. And so I'll leave you with 2 quotes from Atlanta's favorite son, a man we know and love more because of the work of the dream carrier Coretta Scott King. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and in the end, we'll remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Councilmember Marcy Colley Overstreet, Councilmember Andrea Boone, I hope I was not silent. I hope that you heard me. Thank you.
Councilmember Waite.
Thank you, Mr. President. Wanted to take a moment to, one, thank my colleagues, Andrea Boone, as well as Councilmember Overstreet. Mr. President, I also thank you for your reconsideration of the committee assignments. I received a number of phone calls, emails, and so forth surrounding the committee assignments. And I just simply want to be on record today because somehow there's a notion that there are some of us that remain silent. But I want to go on record with 2 things. Not only did Council President Shipman and I immediately have conversations surrounding the committee appointments there, but there were a subsequent of 2 letters and multiple phone calls that took place between he and I. Some of them were even overseas during my visit to Israel. Again, I say this, I will always stand on the side of justice. However, some of us disagree with respect to strategy and how we get things done. But nonetheless, I'm proud to be a member of this body, and it is my hope that anytime any member of this body sees any injustice that we will speak out, regardless of how you choose to do that. And so again, I thank my colleagues for being outspoken on this issue, and President Shipman, I thank you for your reconsideration.
Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to, Councilmember Lewis made me think of this. It's our 1-year anniversary of getting sworn in. And I'm super grateful to my colleagues, to Council President, to our staff for giving me probably one of the best years of my life and making me feel like I can make a difference in this city. So I'm deeply grateful for you all giving me one of the best years of my life to date and getting to do this work, which I've absolutely fallen in love with. But also I wanted to say that, you know, we have a lot of people that come in and talk about certain things that were superseded by the state on, like rent control and other issues. And I wanted to remind everyone that our once-a-year Georgia legislative session starts next week. You have every ability to go down there and be a citizen lobbyist, go down there and fight alongside us for better housing rights, for things like fighting against preemption on rent control, for a number of things. And if you're confused about how to do that, reach out to us. We are available. I'm happy to show you to help you find your representative and to help you lobby on the ropes, because it's an experience that every citizen should have. And the house across the street is your house too. So deeply grateful and really glad that we had this opportunity for people to address a concern and to grow even stronger together as a council, because that's what happens when you come across disagreement, you come across even closer. And I am super excited to work this year to do things like increase housing for people who don't have it, and to fight for shelters for our own shelter population, amongst other things. So thank you all.
Any other remarks from council? Before I ask the clerk for a adjourning roll call, I believe the clerk has an announcement that he would like to make.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make an announcement regarding a friendly reminder regarding the campaign disclosure reports for 2022. They were due on December 31st. The grace period ends on January the 9th at the strike of midnight. Again, the CCDRs for elected officials and those who ran for office unsuccessfully, your year-end reports are due to the Office of Municipal Clerk, and this, as you understand, is regulated by the state of Georgia. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you. And with that, I would ask you to do the adjourning roll call.
Council President Doug Shipman.
Present.
Councilmember Michael Bond. Here. Matt Westmoreland. Keisha Shawn Waits. Jason Winston. Amir Faroki. Byron Amos. Jason Dozier. Liliana Bakhtiari. Alex Wan. Howard Shook. Mary Norwood. Dustin Hillis. Andrea Boone. Marcy Colley Overstreet. Antonio Lewis.
Without objection, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Without objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.